All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to tackle one of the biggest questions out there. Who are you? Seriously, it's a question that has kept thinkers up at night for centuries. And today, we're going to explore some of the most powerful and, honestly, game-changing answers ever proposed.
I mean, have you ever really stopped and thought about it? Why you're a morning person, why you put things off until the last minute, or why you just click with certain people and not others? What is it that makes you, well, you? It's a question we all ask ourselves, right?
And you know what? It's a question that for more than 100 years has basically started a massive intellectual brawl among psychologists. So today, we're going to jump right into the ring and explore the clashing, competing, and totally fascinating ideas that try to solve the great mystery of who we are.
So where do we even begin? Well, we've got to start with the guy who basically kicked this whole thing off, Sigmund Freud. Our first stop is his revolutionary and, yeah, pretty controversial idea that our mind is really just like an iceberg. Okay, so Freud's big idea, the one that changed everything, is the iceberg. He said that everything you're aware of right now, your thoughts, your feelings, that's just the tiny little tip of the iceberg sticking out of the water. The real action, the massive, hidden part deep below the surface, is what he called the unconscious. Think of it as this giant, hidden vault of feelings, primal urges, and memories you don't even know you have, but that are secretly pulling the strings on almost everything you do.
And get this, Freud said that deep down in that unconscious, there's this constant battle raging inside you. On one shoulder, you've got the id. This is your inner toddler, running on pure instinct, the pleasure principle. It's the part of you that's screaming, eat the cake, skip work, buy the shoes. It wants what it wants, and it wants it now. And on the other shoulder, you've got the superego. That's your inner moral compass, the voice of your parents and society, wagging its finger and making you feel guilty for even thinking about eating that cake. So you've got this impulse-driven devil on one side and this moralizing angel on the other. Who's stuck in the middle trying to keep the peace? That would be the ego. The ego is the great mediator, the part of you that has to deal with the real world. It operates on the reality principle, trying desperately to find a realistic way to satisfy the id's crazy demands without getting you in trouble with the superego. It's the part that says, okay, look, how about we finish this project and then we can have a piece of cake? You can imagine all this internal fighting creates a ton of anxiety, right? So to handle it, the ego gets, well, sneaky. It develops these unconscious tricks called defense mechanisms to protect you. Like rationalization. That's when you make up a good-sounding excuse, like blaming a teacher for a bad grade. Or projection, where you accuse someone else of being insecure when really you're the one feeling insecure. And then there's the big one, repression, which is when the ego takes a really painful memory and just shoves it so deep into the unconscious that you literally forget it's there. But here's the thing. Not everyone was totally on board with Freud's intense focus on sex and aggression, not even his own students. And that pushed the whole conversation beyond the Freudian couch, leading to a really fascinating evolution of his original ideas. So you can really see this shift, right? Freud kicks things off in the 1900s, and he's all about those deep, dark, unconscious drives. But then, pretty quickly, you get thinkers like Alfred Adler, who starts to look at social factors. Then Horney comes along and focuses on culture. And later, Erikson argues that we don't just stop developing in childhood. Our personality keeps evolving our entire lives. Take Alfred Adler. He came along and said, hold on a second. Maybe the main thing driving us isn't some hidden primal urge. Maybe it's our lifelong struggle to overcome that feeling of inferiority we all have when we're helpless little kids. For Adler, your whole personality is basically the unique strategy you come up with to feel capable and like you belong. And this led to one of his most famous and, let's be honest, most debated ideas, birth order theory. He suggested that your place in the family shapes your whole approach to life. Are you a firstborn? Maybe a little more traditional after being dethroned by a younger sibling. Or are you the competitive second child, always trying to catch up to the pace setter ahead of you? It's a really interesting way to think about how our first social group shapes us. Okay, now let's talk about Horney. She took this conversation in another new direction. She said, let's look less at the internal world and more at our relationships. She argued that the real root of our problems is something she called basic anxiety. This deep, nagging feeling of being alone and helpless in the world, which she believed was often caused by things like parental indifference. For Horney, that feeling, not some primal urge, is what really drives us.
And to deal with that deep-seated anxiety, she said we basically develop one of 3 coping strategies. You'll probably recognize these. Some of us move toward people. We become people pleasers, desperate for affection. Others move against people, becoming aggressive, needing to be in control. And some of us move away from people. We become super independent, detached, and self-sufficient.
Okay, so up to this point, we've been talking a lot about inner conflict, anxiety, darker urges. It's all a bit heavy, right? Well, a whole new school of thought came along and basically said, what if we've been looking at this all wrong? This was the humanist counter-revolution, and it was a total game changer.
And this really gets to the heart of the debate. It's a total clash of worldviews. The psychodynamic view is pretty deterministic. It basically says your personality is determined by unconscious stuff from your past. But the humanistic view, it's all about optimism. It champions things like free will, personal growth, and the idea that we all have this amazing potential, and we're actively striving to reach it. So you had people like Abraham Maslow who just flat out rejected that dark, pessimistic view of people. In a world that was still recovering from major conflict, they offered this radical, hopeful alternative that people are fundamentally good. He proposed that all of us have this natural, built-in drive to grow and become the best we can be, a concept he called self-actualization. And you've probably seen his famous pyramid, right? The hierarchy of needs? The logic is actually super simple. You can't worry about becoming your best self if you're worried about where your next meal is coming from. So at the very bottom, you need the basics: food, water, safety. Then you move up to needing love and belonging, and then esteem and respect. Only when you've got all that handled can you really start focusing on that peak of the pyramid, self-actualization. And right alongside Maslow was another giant of humanism, Carl Rogers. He had this beautiful idea he called the actualizing tendency. Think about it, like a plant. A plant just naturally grows towards the sun, right? Rogers believed people are the exact same way, that we have this innate drive to grow, to get better, and to make a positive contribution. It's a profoundly hopeful way of looking at what makes us tick.
Okay, wow. So we've gone from hidden battles in the unconscious to striving against inferiority, all the way up to climbing toward our highest potential. But what does any of this, mean for us today? Let's wrap things up by looking at the incredible legacy these ideas have left behind. Here's the really wild part. Even if you have never, ever read a single page of Freud or Maslow, I guarantee you were using their ideas every single day. They have so completely soaked into our culture that they've shaped the very words we use to talk about ourselves.
I mean, just look at this list. How many times have you heard someone talk about their unconscious biases or joke about a Freudian slip? We talk about someone having a big ego or point out a friend's defense mechanism. We might even call someone out for having an inferiority complex. And of course, we all talk about wanting to achieve self-actualization. These aren't just academic terms anymore. They're part of how we understand life.
And that really brings us full circle, back to that first big question. Who are you? Are you fundamentally a creature driven by hidden conflicts from your past? Or are you a climber, always striving to reach your potential? The honest answer is, the great debate is far from over. And maybe, just maybe, that's what makes being human so interesting.